Okay, hey, EHE 105 students, Dr. Flora coming to you from my bedroom as I'm wont to do. And I'm honored today to be joined by a member of the University of Mississippi Counseling Center staff, Davis Abraham. He is a counselor here and we're gonna talk a little bit about managing stress going into this last stretch of going into and taking finals. I was just talking to Mr. Abraham, and we were saying how, like, this has been a stressful semester, and kind of the stress is coming and coming and coming, and like right here at the top is where we are right now, kind of crescendoing when it comes to taking the finals. And I wanted to talk to Mr. Abraham just to kind of ask some general questions about how you guys can think about managing the inevitable stress that is coming, and that's already here in a lot of ways. So I'll just start. So what are some things that you feel that maybe you see in your work with students on our campus that maybe an individual student may think is very unique to them, but really you're seeing with a lot of students, and that maybe we can all be comforted by knowing, hey, I'm not the only one that's going through this.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of consistent patterns, especially in the context of the pandemic and the shortened semester, where there is a lot of stress and students are having fewer social interactions. It's harder for students to stay connected. And then with the condensed semester academically, having some lower motivation than they would like to with studying and performing in school, where students will come in and say, this has been really hard. I'm exhausted. I'm so stressed out. And I don't know if I have anything left in the tank. And so we're seeing that a lot with a number of different students and who are facing some of the unique challenges of being a college student in our current pandemic.
Yeah. So I think that's good to hear that. Like, I think a lot of you all that are going to be watching this are feeling the stress of feeling like, man, my tank is just empty, and recognizing that does not make you deficient in some way for this challenge. If anything, it makes you extremely normal. But there is some comfort in that. But at the same time, and I also do think that we can all, the students, take comfort in, hey, the fall of 2020, when it comes to our transcripts for the rest of our lives, is going to be treated in a way no semester of college in the modern world has ever been treated. It will look different. It will. But at the same time, like, even in the midst of the tiredness, let's, wanting to finish strong. So what are some tactics that you say are really universally helpful for students to start thinking through, like, what, how they can, tangibly manage their stress as we come down the stretch?
Yeah, so I've got on a macro big picture level, the most important things that you can do are dieting, sleep, exercise. Now, students, a lot of you may be aware, okay, that is the key to a healthy life, but it can be really difficult to do some of those things where we're spending more time than ever in front of screens, where exercising is more difficult by the nature of our current circumstances. Dieting in college and eating healthy, you have to really prioritize that. So those three things can be really helpful as just a way to think about, okay, what can I do materially day in and day out that can help me deal with stress? And engaging your stress level may be helpful as well. So different events are going to cause different amounts of stress. Not finding a parking spot, while not a big deal, still may be stressful, but then your calculus exam that's coming up, giant source of stress. So, two, just kind of checking in and seeing, okay, am I stressed? If you somaticize stress, you may notice that.
Somaticize, help us with that one.
Yes, when when your body begins to feel a different kind of way, some people will feel it in their shoulders if it's tight. Maybe your chest is heavy. You're grinding your teeth while you're sleeping. There's some signs that's your body communicating to you that, hey, there's cortisol, the hormone that gets released when humans experience stress. Your body's saying, hey, we need to check this out. And, you're experiencing some difficult things right now.
Okay, gotcha. So I guess, some of the things that maybe, you tell me, these are kind of me interpreting what I'm hearing you say. You tell me if this is right or not, and please add on to it and subtract from it. But maybe in terms of exercise, yeah, if you want to, you have some kind of weightlifting or, long distance running routine that you already do, great. But exercise right now for this point in for the purpose of relieving some stress could mean just popping in your earbuds and walking around campus. You can do that if you're exercising. You can do that and not wear a mask, and be outside and connect in that way. So it could be just that exercise could just be that, just kind of walking around some and taking some time. And if got your earbuds in, you're good to go. You're not going to be walking around and everyone's going to identify, oh, that's a stressed out, overwhelmed person. You're just on a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And these little things that may not seem like they're going to be life altering can be really helpful just to get you through, especially at a time where everything's converging and it's the end of the semester, we're tired, have these exams. These little pieces can be helpful. Mm-hmm. to just get through the stretch.
Right. And maybe when it comes to eating, setting a goal of like, for my lunch and for my dinner, first of all, eating both of those in addition to breakfast, but for my lunch and my dinner, I'm just going to find something green to go with whatever else I'm eating. Right. Mm-hmm. Even if you kind of have to choke it down, finding something green to put on your plate. There are obviously a lot of options for that at Rebel Market, and there are other places around town. Finding something green, then also when it comes to breakfast, eating something when you get up, something with some fat. It's not bad, like some yogurt. You can find that anywhere. Oatmeal, something tangible, and really trying to stick to having 3 meals a day. I know a lot of times as freshmen, guys don't necessarily eat breakfast or maybe don't eat meals in a very consistent fashion. But the nice thing about your exam schedule is when everything's going to take place. And so you can go ahead and set goals for like when you're going to eat. And then that kind of takes me into, is that fair, first of all, Mr. Abraham?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me into also thinking about, okay, I'm going to set goals of when I go to bed at night, and maybe even saying, even if all the studying is not done, you're increasing your effort of retaining what you have done by getting a good night's sleep. And that sleep compounded with these other things are just going to put you in a better space to manage stress. One thing we've all talked about this semester, you heard me talk about a lot, is the idea of our brain being a muscle. And just like if that brain was going to the gym and pumping iron, the more we do it, or the more routine we do it, the less stress it puts on our muscles. So we're able to do it more. The same thing goes for exam week. When you're doing, setting aside some time each day for just some exercise, some light exercise, eating consistent meals with some nutritional value, and getting some good sleep, you're putting less stress on your brain muscle, just in general. And also there's this idea, would you agree with this? There's this idea that just by like setting, if you just kind of, commit to right now saying I'm setting a schedule for exam week, there's some health stress benefits of just kind of knowing, okay, I have this schedule, so therefore I'm doing something about my stress, right? I'm doing something about it. I'm doing something about it when I take a walk. I'm doing something about it when I sleep well and when I eat well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Gray, because Dr. Flora, because the one piece I was going to hit on is there some other more specific or granular ways, and the first one is organization. Because sometimes when we're stressed, everything feels overwhelming, and it's like eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? Well, you got to take the first bite, and so
I was going to say hot sauce, but okay. Anyway,
you have hot sauce and then the first bite.
Yeah.
And so a lot of students where you're saying, okay, I only have 168 hours this week and I need about 200. I'm already in trouble. What do I do? Do I sacrifice sleep? But finding some way to get some kind of organization, prioritize what's important, planning out your time, organization can be really helpful. So it feels less overwhelming, because when we're overwhelmed, we're less likely to engage in some kind of behavioral activation or engagement. And then it's stress, overwhelm, and we start avoiding, and then that begins to cycle when the avoidance gets bigger and we feel worse.
Right. Procrastinating, avoiding, that kind of thing just makes it worse.
Yeah, and then another piece you can do on that is set limits. Dr. Fuller was talking about setting a bedtime. That can be really helpful. Other pieces of, hey, sometimes we got to say no. So freshman in college, it's exciting, making friends, enjoying things, but would encourage you to know your limits and say, realistically, can we learn a semester's worth of biochemistry in one night? Probably not. So let's set some limits and figure out what you can put on your plate, and having an idea around that. Also, I would encourage relaxation. And relaxation is, I think it's important to parse out resting and relaxing versus just shutting down. So you can watch Netflix for 4 or 5 hours, and while it may feel relaxing, I think that rest is more of an active state rather than a passive state. So finding the different things that energize you, because students will be exhausted and we'll talk and they say, yeah, I just want to take a break. I watched movies all day on Saturday. And then the next day I felt bad because I didn't get anything done. So finding little pieces that can be restful and can recharge you, however that looks for you.
What would be some examples of that, maybe?
So for some people, it's like spending less time on schoolwork and hanging out with friends. And it seems paradoxical because you're like, no, I need to study. I need to spend time on school. But hanging out with your friends is going to be more enjoyable. It's going to recharge you if you're extroverted. And then you can have more energy to do the things you want to. For some people, it could be cleaning up your dorm. If it looks bad, it's menial labor. You don't have to think a lot about it. It's not generally challenging. You put some clothes in the laundry, you go do your laundry, but doing that can be restful and take something off your plate at the same time. Naps, walking, listen to music. Some people enjoy just driving around to clear their head. Just finding whatever works for you that is restful and can recharge you.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense, for sure. So are there, I guess I'm trying to think, like, what are some other things that you think are helpful? Maybe just, we haven't done like any kind of mindfulness meditation regimen in my class, but what are some, if there's some small windows of how to relax yourself that you've seen work for students, what are some of those?
Yes, so a couple. Mindfulness is pretty big right now. Go to YouTube, type in mindfulness, try it out. It can be a little bit different. One thing that I encourage a lot of students to do is just breathe. And it may sound rudimentary, or that, okay, this is basic, but slowing down, like Dr. Forrest, and we're just breathing through our nose and breathing out through our nose, and finding a time where we don't have to think and not feel stressed out. We're just breathing. And if you can regulate your physiology that way, your heart rate can slow down, your nervous system is going to look a little bit different. And so finding a way to breathe, walking around and staying in the present. So noticing different colors on trees, what you can hear, what you can smell, what you can see, but really slowing yourself down and bringing yourself to the present moment. Or if you want to do some kind of guided meditation, ton of resources on the internet, but sitting and doing it, it can really relax you and help you reset when you get into that high stress or anxious or overwhelmed state.
So that's super helpful. And I guess maybe one last question, and then I'll turn it over to you to just anything else you want to impart to our students. Is there maybe a string of thought or something or specific topics that you see in your work that students ruminate on too much and blow out of proportion, especially at a time like this, that maybe we can name and try to move past so it doesn't affect our ability to do well in this last few weeks of school? Because in some ways, you guys have done it. I mean, y'all are making it to the finish line. This semester, more than any other, is about survival in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are two of them that stick out as you say that. The first one I find is, I call it discounting the positive. So suppose you make 2 C's on a Spanish test and then make an A. And rather than focus on, hey, I made an A, I was able to do that, it's, well, it was open book, or the material was easy, the professor just gave me that, but I'm really like a C student. And so it's focusing a lot on the negative pieces. And when positive events happen in your life, you discount it to say, oh, that was by circumstance, that wasn't me. But the failures or whatever it may be, yeah, that's definitely on me. So oftentimes we do that. And so it can be helpful to slow down and sort of evaluate, okay, am I thinking about this with the positives and the negatives integrated into my thought process? The other one I see, the big one, is catastrophic thinking. So it's, okay, if I don't make an A on this exam, I'll definitely get kicked out of the honors college, and then I'll drop out of the University of Mississippi, and then I'll end up, without a job and whatever it may be. So it's really worst case scenario and stuff, where students will say, well, if this doesn't happen, this may happen. And then you start in that rabbit trail. And when you feel stressed out, that thought process can really grow and develop.
Yeah, snowball going downhill and getting bigger.
Mm-hmm. So those two, discounted positive, and then just being very catastrophic about, oh no, this is going to happen and everything is going to change for the worse.
Totally. And that makes sense. I know as a 36-year-old, I do that all the time. That may be part of the reason I'm bald. And so it's really helpful though for me. And I think what Mr. Abraham's saying is so spot on. And I think a lot of you guys are resonating with that, this idea of like discounting the good I do and only focusing on the bad. And then kind of almost linked with that is this idea of like, there's so much riding on this one thing that I've focused on, that I'm letting it roll into this big snowball of anxiety and worry, when really none of us are, none of you all are going to take a test that's going to be life or death during exam week. But that's really helpful to think about. And I hope everyone watching is taking note of like, this is a common thread. You're feeling this and you're not the only one. And there can be some comfort in that. So thank you so much, Mr. Abraham. Is there anything else that you'd want to leave us with, just in terms of managing stress as we cross the finish line for the semester?
Yeah, I guess I've got two other things or really 3 other things to mention as well. Okay. Just want to encourage all the students, hey, it's hard right now. And some of us tend to, what I call, compare our suffering and say, well, my life's not as hard as this person's or that person, or other people have stuff going on. But I would just encourage you to, hey, if your life's hard, just to validate that feeling. It may not be the hardest, it may not be the least hard, but rather than comparing and saying, well, I shouldn't feel this way, I shouldn't think this way, I should be happier, I should be making A's. Just maybe allowing yourself to have a little bit of grace and say, I am where I am, and that's okay. It's may not where I always want to be, but I'm here. And would just encourage students to do that. The comparison can be stressful, can take away some joy. So really, if things are hard, it's okay. They can be hard right now. Then two other pieces: self-care. That term, if you log on to Instagram, you'll see a lot of posts about it. It's in right now. And just want to encourage you to, when you think about that, if you're interested in doing that, it's something that's intentional that you do out of your daily liturgies or rituals. So if I run every day, that's not a form of self-care. If I go to bed at midnight every night and I go to bed at 10 p.m., that would be self-care. So just thinking about the intentional, mindful practice in that.
So doing something different, essentially.
Yes, doing something different that's outside of your daily routine. And another piece would be if you have any kind of spirituality, whatever that looks like for you, to not forget to engage in that, because we want to be biologically healthy, socially healthy, psychologically healthy, and spiritually healthy, whatever that looks like to you. So would encourage you, if you have any kind of spiritual practice, to also, that can be something quick to go in times of stress. So would encourage that as well.
That's awesome. Mr. Abraham, I can't thank you enough for your time. And I recommend to all of my students to utilize the Counseling Center resources and other types of therapy in and around campus. And I'm so grateful to you. And I hope that this will be something that all of you that are watching can kind of recall as you're taking on this challenge that is finals and leading up to it. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dr. Foy, and glad I got to communicate with some students. That's what we're here for, and as a university, want to support you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye.